Two of the most reliable computer models, the GFS and the European model, are both forecasting a hurricane to develop out of this tropical disturbance that's currently in the main development region. Let's move forward with the GFS model, and as you can see, by right around the Monday, August 12th timeframe, we do have a tropical storm in our hands with its millibar pressure hovering around 1,004 millibars. So it is a relatively weak tropical storm, but it does have nice structure to it. It's very compact, which is a really good sign when it comes to intensification of tropical cyclones. And moving forward into the more long-term future, by Tuesday is pretty much right at the Leeward Islands doorstep with its millibar pressure down to the 990s, which could be equivalent to a hurricane at this point. And then moving even more forward, this does become a concern for Puerto Rico as well as the Dominican Republic with its millibar pressure hovering around 989 millibars. And this could easily be considered a Category 1 hurricane at this time, as this would have happened right around the Wednesday, August 14th time frame. So this is around 6 days out. There is at least a decent amount of certainty regarding the track of this storm system. The main steering flow will be this ridge, and of course there's big questions: where exactly will this storm go? Because while the general direction seems to be pointing towards the Caribbean, there could still be pretty significant changes when it comes to the track that could of course play a big role in terms of what impacts you experience. So the chance that this impacts Puerto Rico is certainly getting higher, but there's still a lot to really digest with this storm system before we could come to any certain conclusions regarding the impact of this storm system. But definitely the Leeward Islands, Puerto Rico, as well as the Dominican Republic and Haiti, you need to pay very close attention to this, because it seems like all the most reliable computer models are pointing towards this storm system going this general direction. Now, the key that will determine the track of the storm system will of course be the steering flow, such as this ridge, as well as a trough that's expected to move just off the northeast coast by the time we approach the middle of next week. So let me show you guys the 500 millibar height anomaly, because that gives a good indication of what the main steering flows will be. And as you can see, by the time we approach the Wednesday, August 14th time frame, there's going to be a ridge right here, but there's going to be a trough that's expected to dig down far south enough to the point where this will be able to pick up this storm system and move it to the north. Now, the key thing will be how fast will this trough move into the northeast, because the faster it moves, more likely it'll move northward a little bit more quickly. The best case scenario would be that this trough moves into the northeast and open Atlantic relatively early. So this could be able to pick up this storm system and steer it to the north, avoiding the Caribbean islands altogether, and most likely the United States at this point. But there's still a decent amount of uncertainty regarding that. But right now it seems like the GFS model is expecting this trough to move in just late enough to a point where it could bring direct impacts to the Windward and Leeward Islands, as well as Puerto Rico, and bring some impacts to the Dominican Republic. But there's still uncertainty regarding how fast this moves in, so I'll keep you guys updated once we get a little bit more certainty with the forecast. And then moving beyond that point, we do see this trough will linger around, so it's likely that this will continue the move further northward. But what's interesting is that by the time this moves further northward, it does come somewhat close to the United States, and then this trough will eventually move to the east, and we'll see a ridge develop just to the east of this storm system. So in a scenario like this, it might look a little bit scary at first for the east coast of the United States, because we do have a strong ridge that's just to the north of this storm system. And of course, on the southern side of ridges, we see the winds move from an easterly direction. And then we also have an upper level low that's located right over the southeast. So if there is enough of a pressure gradient between this upper level low and this ridge just to the north of it, could we potentially see this storm system take a left hook towards the east coast of the United States? It's still way too early to say for certain. With look at the forecast now, where I'm going at 228 hours out, so there's still a lot to uncover when it comes to this ridge as well as this upper level low. By the time we approach Sunday, right around next week, late next week, I should say. So definitely stay tuned for more updates. But right now, it seems like the GFS model still expects the storm system to move out to sea. As for this storm system to take a left hook towards the northeast, we're going to need to see a stronger pressure gradient between this upper level low as well as this ridge located over eastern Canada. So this upper level low would need to be a bit stronger, and I would say preferably a little bit more further southward, so this storm system would be able to encounter the easterly flow associated with the northern portion of this upper level low, steer this towards the northeast, and this ridge just to the north of it would need to be a little bit stronger. It seems like the GFS model in this scenario doesn't expect the upper level low nor this ridge to be strong enough to have a pressure gradient that would steer this towards the east coast of the United States, as GFS model steers this out to sea. And in a scenario like this, climatologically speaking, it's most likely in storm systems in a scenario like this would move out to sea, as it's very rare for a ridge that's strong enough as well as an upper level low that's strong enough to be present at the same time to take a left hook to the northeast. There are certainly some exceptions. One of the more notable exceptions was Hurricane Sandy, but so I'll say the more likely scenario, just based on historical context alone, would be that this will move out to sea. But there's still a lot of time to really uncover this forecast and to really iron out this forecast to where we get a little bit more certainty. And of course, weather is completely unpredictable, no matter how many times history suggests that this storm system could move out to sea. This could maybe be that one time or those few exceptions where this moves towards northeast. So can't rule out any scenario when it's a forecast this far out, as I'll keep you guys updated with the forecast. And of course, there could still be that possibility that maybe the ridging builds a little bit earlier and steer this towards the southeast. We're definitely going to need to pay close attention to that possibility as well, because when we're talking about forecasts that's over 200 hours out, there's still anything really goes when it comes to the amount of possibilities. But what I could say with a little bit more certainty is that the Caribbean in some way, shape, or form will experience impacts from whatever the storm system becomes, whether it's a tropical storm by the time it reaches the Caribbean, or hurricane, or potentially even a major hurricane. Most likely the Caribbean will experience at least some sort of impacts, whether it's direct or indirect. I'm leaning a little bit more towards direct impacts for the Caribbean, as it seems like the European model is also leaning towards that direction, bringing direct impacts. But we're still 5 days out, and I'll keep you guys a little bit more updated. But definitely, you guys need to pay very close attention right over Puerto Rico, as well as the Leeward Islands, and the Dominican Republic you need to watch out, as well as Haiti. So definitely stay tuned over the next few days regarding the impacts you guys could see with this storm system. Now, in terms of what the European model is stating, so the European model is also taking a fairly similar track forecast. Let me go to the 12Z run because that gives a more long-term forecast. So the European model is giving us fairly similar forecast when it comes to track, but it is leaning towards track slightly further southward than the GFS model, which makes me a little bit more confident we will see direct impacts over the Caribbean islands. But the key difference with the European model is that the storm is a lot weaker by the time this approaches the Caribbean and doesn't really intensify until it's just north of the Caribbean, where it's over the open Atlantic at this time. And by the time we approach Sunday, August 18th, we do see potentially a major hurricane in our hands just off the southeast United States coast. And then we're going to need to see what steering patterns will exist by the time we approach that time period, which is too early to say at this point, but we're definitely going to pay close attention to that over the next few days. But the European model is expecting a weaker storm for the Caribbean, as during the initial stages of tropical cyclone development, while the conditions may seem conducive enough for this storm system as it continues ahead further westward, we don't see a lot of dry air right in front of this storm system. And the wind shear isn't necessarily strong when it comes to the initiation of a center of circulation. When it comes to thunderstorm activity as well as rotation, it's always difficult in that initial stages to really forecast when we could see initiation of a tropical storm or some sort of center of circulation, because there's plenty of thunderstorm activity surrounding this storm system, as it's very difficult to really iron out where that vorticity will focus in on. And the European model, despite the conducive conditions for tropical cyclone development, is expecting the storm system to somewhat struggle to find its vorticity and to find a well-defined center of circulation, initially speaking. And it's not until we approach this storm system approaches the Caribbean where we could see rapid intensification of this storm system. So as of right now, the possibilities could range anywhere from this being a tropical depression or weak tropical storm by the time this approaches the Caribbean, or maybe even less than that, to potentially as strong as a hurricane, which is the reason why I say to pay very close attention to how the forecast shift over the next few days, because there's still a pretty high amount of uncertainty regarding at least the strength of this storm system, and a decent amount of uncertainty regarding the track of this storm system. But we're definitely going to need to wait. I'll say until maybe by the time we approach Sunday. That's when we could see a tropical cyclone formation definitely become more conducive at this point. So we're definitely going to need to wait and see how fast this storm system is able to develop a compact structure, just enough to a point where we could see a well-defined center of circulation. Let me show you guys the wind shear, because like I said, the wind shear isn't expected to be very strong with this storm system. We do see there is a decent amount of wind shear to the southern side of this storm system, which could potentially inhibit it, at least early on. But we eventually see that this upper level high that was intensifying the upper level winds will eventually move over the storm system and enhance the outflow to the point where the storm system rapidly intensifies. Taking a look at the GFS model's version of this same scenario, the GFS model does expect a similar amount, just slightly less wind shear than the European model, which it means that this storm system strengthens just enough, and we do see stronger outflow a little bit earlier for this storm system to have a little bit more of a conducive environment. So I'll say the further northward this storm system moves, the more likely it is to strengthen into a tropical cyclone, since the outflow will be better, as well as the wind shear will be a little bit lighter if it were to take a northern scenario. So a lot to really discuss over the next few days, a lot to really unpack when it comes to the information over the next few days. But I'll certainly keep you guys updated as we continue to get further updates regarding the status of the storm system. So here is the National Hurricane Center's forecast when it comes to a chance of tropical cyclone formation. Currently, the National Hurricane Center is giving a 50% chance, which is a medium chance, but I expect this chance to rise, as it seems like the most reliable computer models are definitely more and more favoring some sort of tropical cyclone to develop near the Caribbean. So I do expect this chance to intensify, and I do think direct impacts, whether there's a tropical storm or hurricane for the Caribbean, are likely by the time we approach the middle of next week. So definitely be aware of that right over the Caribbean islands, as I'll give you guys a more direct forecast when we get a little bit more certainty with the forecast, because of course as of right now it's still a little bit too far to say what impacts to experience, especially since we don't know the exact strength of the storm system by the time it approaches the Caribbean. But I'll make sure to keep you guys updated over the next several days regarding what will likely become Tropical Storm Ernesto. So here's a quick look at the GFS Ensemble members, and as you can see, we do have pretty much all of them expecting some sort of tropical storm to develop just to the east of the Leeward Islands, and then it approaches the Puerto Rico area as well. So definitely be aware of that. And Dominican Republic could also get impacted. And then if we were to move into the more long-term forecast, much of the Ensemble members show a decent amount of agreement taking this northward. And the good news is that as of right now, most of them do take it just outside off the east coast of the United States. We do have other ones that do come a little bit closer, more uncomfortably close to the southeast. We're definitely going to need to be aware of that scenario, especially since this is a very long-term forecast. So definitely don't take this as this is 100% going to stay off the East Coast, because there's still a lot of time to really get a better idea of what's going to happen. But it's certainly good news that as of right now, it seems like the Ensemble members want to take it off the East Coast. The European model scenario is taking a track that's much further southward, and it's a lot weaker initially speaking. So this approaches the Dominican Republic and Puerto Rico area as more so a very weak tropical storm, or not even a tropical storm, and then doesn't really strengthen until it's well to the north of the Caribbean islands, as that's what most of the Ensemble members are agreeing upon. And again, the good news is that a lot of the Ensemble members still want to take this out to sea. Maybe this could be a very long-term threat for the east coast of Canada, so watch out for that. But again, it's still so far out to a point where we definitely can't make any assumptions regarding the track beyond the Caribbean point. So just stay tuned as we get a little bit more of an idea of what the steering flow pattern will be by the time this approaches the Caribbean. But that's it for now, guys, and I thank you guys for watching.